This class should be for an elevation for the soul of Tzvi, the son of Maisha, or Tzvi ben Maisha.
Amen. Thank you so much.
Of course. You should have a safe trip back. Safe
Amen.
and smooth ride.
Amen. I have to pack. I'm going to listen and pack. One of the good things from technology.
Exactly. The advantage of Zoom, your screen is off. Pack and learn. Beautiful. As versus not learning because you got to pack.
Right.
All right. You always wonder what people are doing when their screens are off, right? So we are, this is the second time in chapter 18. Now, obviously, the first time was pre-Passover. So that was like a long time ago because Pesach takes up so much mental space and physical space and just there's a lot going on Pesach. So therefore it's hard to remember back. So let me do a quick review on what we were discussing last class, which was before Pesach. And yeah, it was before Pesach. I'm trying to remember which class it was. So we're now in chapter 18. Chapter 18 opens up a whole new approach of Tanya. We were sort of segueing to it in chapter 16 and chapter 17, but this is really like a new approach. Because chapter 1 through 17 is what we call the long road of Tanya. The goal of Tanya, Tanya meaning the first section of the 5 books within the book you might have that's called the Tanya. They're really 5 separate works of the Alter Rebbe. Admor Hazaken, the author of the Tanya, Reb Shner Zalman of Liadi. So when we say Tanya, we generically mean all 5. I'm picking up something which is actually bigger than a Tanya. It's called the Chitas. It also has a Chumash in it. It also has Tehillim in it. It also has a Siddur in it. It also has a Yom Yom in it. But the part that's called the Tanya is really 5 books, all written by Reb Shner Zalman of Liadi. But generally when someone says Tanya, they might mean just the first of those 5 books, which is a work of 53 chapters that took the Alter Rebbe, Admor Hazaken Reb Shner Zalman of Liadi, 20 years to write. The Alter Rebbe spent 20 years writing that work of 53 chapters, which is the first of the 5 books within the Tanya, and generically the one we really refer to as Tanya. The other 4 referred to by their own individual names. So the goal, the statement of purpose of that first work, Likutei Amarim Tanya, which has 53 chapters, is for us to understand one pasuk, one verse. And the verse is, Ki karov elecha hadavar ma'od b'ficha b'lavcha la'asoso. The matter is very close to you. The matter meaning the service of God is very close to you, in your mouth, in your heart, to do it with all your faculties of mind, with all your emotions, with all your speech, with all your actions, very close and near to serve God perfectly. Give him everything. Give him every thought you think, every feeling you feel, every word you say, every action you do. Achieve the goal of Tanya, be a Beinoni. We're saying, really? I never realized it was so easy. It actually seems to be quite difficult, if not impossible. Well, the verse says it's easy. Ki karov elecha, it's very close to you. So it doesn't seem so close. The Alter Rebbe says, no, it really is. Because let's change the word close and make it doable. It's really doable. That's what it means by close. It's accessible. You can reach it. Close means you can get there. You can get there. You can be that Beinoni. How can you be that Beinoni? Because if you feel a real love for God and you feel a real fear for God, then of course, you love someone, you want to be with one, you want to give to them. You love God, you want to give to him. You want to give him everything you can, and you want to be with him. And how am I with God? When I'm doing the commandment. The commandment, the word mitzvah, tzavsa, is bond. I'm bonded up and fused with God when I do a commandment. I'm even more fused with him when I study Torah. That's my mind is his mind embracing. So when I'm really loving God, I really want to be with him. I really want to do every commandment. And I really don't want to do anything wrong or other than a commandment because I don't want any separations. Because I love God that much and I fear separating from him that much. So all I need to do is feel that type of love and that type of fear of God. And hey, we're good. But how do I do that? So in the first 17 chapters, the basic premise was study about God, understand God, fill your mind with your understanding of God. And the more you meditate and contemplate and have God in your mind, this is like the energy is going to build and build and build. Envision this like dam where the water is rising, 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 rising. And then you open up the gates and push, it all comes out. So the more your mind is full of an understanding of God, it's going to emerge from your soul this love and awe you're creating by virtue of using your mind to understand, think, and contemplate God. And that's the approach of the first 17 chapters of Tanya, which we call the long road, because it's not a short path. It takes time to learn and think and learn and think and contemplate and meditate and more and more and more. It will happen. But you need a lot of focus, a lot of mental strength, a lot of time, a lot of dedication to get to that point. But it will happen. It is doable. Kikaro, it's close to you. It's accessible. It's doable. But it takes a long time. And it's a lot high level work. But what if someone's not so intellectual? They can't learn about God. If they could learn about God, they can't hold that in their brain to think and have in our ADD heads. Imagine holding one thought in our brain for 10 seconds might be hard without anything else going on in our brain. 15 seconds, 30 seconds, try it. Just one thought in your mind and nothing else allowed in. It's hard for us. So it takes a lot of mental focus, a lot of mental energies. It takes a background, it takes learning, and it takes time because it's going to take time. You'll get there, but what if you don't have all those luxuries right now? You need to serve God now. You need to give him your mind and give him your heart and give him your actions and give him your speech. How are you going to do that now? So the Rebbe says, well, there's actually another road. Now, I said chapter 16 and 17 sort of segued us in this direction because we opened up that concept of tivuna, that sort of intellectualized love. But tivuna was still demanding us to create something. It just was a shorter product, an easier product. Not as difficult as creating a love. Tivuna is much faster, but it's still a creation. Chapter 18, we go to a whole different road. In chapter 18, we're not creating anything. In chapter 18, we are uncovering the natural love and natural fear every one of us possesses because we're a Jew and it's wired in our soul. So here, wait, we don't have to create it. It's there already. All you have to do is bring it out. But every one of us has it. Every one of us naturally believes in God. Every one of us naturally loves God. Every one of us naturally fears God, right? As I say, no atheist in a foxhole. Everyone has a belief, everyone has a love, and everyone has a fear of God. We need to access it, but it's there. So that's what we introduced with our last class, that we all possess a love of God. But we said, well, I got a bunch of questions on this love. And the Rebbe raised 4 questions. We said 2 of those questions we are answering in chapter 18, and 2 of them we're going to answer in chapter 19. So by the time we finish chapter 19, we have a basic understanding of this love. We still don't understand how on a regular basis we can extract it. We're going to spend a number of chapters on that. But before we get to that point, we want to understand the love itself. And that's what we're doing over chapter 18 and chapter 19. So chapter 18 is answering 2 questions, and chapter 19 is answering 2 questions. The first question chapter 18 answered was, wait a minute, how did we get this love? The Alter Rebbe wrote that was a love we inherited from our forefathers, from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. But how do you inherit a love? A love is like a feeling. If your mother loves something, it doesn't mean you're born loving it. If your father loves something, you're not born loving it. They might educate you to love it, but it's not like a by birth type of thing. Yet the Alter Rebbe is saying every Jew naturally loves God as an inheritance from our forefathers. So what does he mean that our forefathers inherited to us a love? So the Alter Rebbe explained, and we discussed this last time, that it's not really that they gave us a love. What they gave us in their merit is something you can give, a soul. And we explained that until the time of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, after the conclusion of Jacob, souls were not given in a genealogical sense. There was always people that possessed soul. That was always necessary for the existence of the world. But those people were hand-selected. It was personally, each person individually deserved that soul, and there's no saying any of his children did. His wife, his parents. This person that possesses soul deserves soul. If you deserve soul, you have soul. Otherwise, you don't. So in every generation, there were 1, 2, maybe 3 people, very, very, very few people that really deserve soul, because this was not such good generations. It was actually the opposite of good generations. So there weren't too many people that had soul. But if they had it, it was no reflection on their children at all. Until we have Abraham, who led such a life absolutely dedicated to expressing God's will, as continued by his son Isaac, Yitzchak, who also led a life absolutely dedicated to expressing God's will, which continued to his son Jacob, who also lived a life absolutely dedicated to expressing God's will, to the degree that the 3 of them are called in the Zohar, in the foundational work of Kabbalah, God's chariot. That they had no independent volition. They just expressed God's will. God said, wow, we're changing the rules. Now we got to change the rules. Of course, it's not like a mess up on God's part. This is what he wanted. Obviously, we're moving in this direction. Forget this free dispensation of soul to all who deserves. Now it's going exclusively to the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the merit of their lives dedicated to my service. And it is going to every descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So until then, it was an open club. Anyone in the world could have a soul. Now it's a closed club. You have to be a descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Until then, you had to deserve it to have a soul. Now you don't have to deserve it. It's genealogy. If you are a descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, you deserve it or not, you're going to have a soul. So it's only their descendants and every one of their descendants. And as I said, it was actually a little bit different than it is now. Until the giving of the Torah, it went by either the male or the female line. Meaning if your mother or father was a descendant of Jacob, which means Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that child possesses a godly soul. Of course, we know once the Torah was given, several generations later, then we're following the rule book of Torah, the blueprint for the world, and then it was all the descendants, only the descendants through the mother's line. So a Jewish father would not ensure soul for a child, and a Jewish mother does. That happened with the giving of the Torah. So therefore, the Rebbe says, when we say our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, inherited to us soul, what we mean is, inherit to us love, what we mean is that in their merit, we have soul. And embedded in that soul naturally is love of God. Why does every soul naturally gift us with love of God? Because that's really the ultimate expression of the self-love, so to speak, of the soul. That the soul is a piece of God. The essence of the soul comes from the very essence of God. Every one of us possess in our core God's essence. So therefore, the most natural state of being of the Jew is in love with God. It's literally an expression of love of self. The natural love people have, the strongest love people have, love of self, is what every soul is wiring to love God. So we all love God. There's no question we love God. The question is only, how do we feel the love that we naturally possess? So we're going to discuss in chapter 19, because that's one of the 2 questions we answer in chapter 19, how we feel it, how we access it. The answer in chapter 19, once we learn the answer, you'll see, is not good enough to apply to all situations in our life. It's sort of a very narrow answer in a very narrow situation. Starting in chapter 20, we broaden it. So what do we do the rest of the time? And that's what we basically deal with from chapter 20 through chapter 25 of Tanya. The other concept we wanted to understand in this chapter about this love is, where is she found in our soul? And where she's found in is the chachma, the highest level of our soul powers, which is reflecting the highest level of God's energies. In every world, God is expressing himself with 10 different powers, attributes, dimensions. Sfirot is a Kabbalistic term for them. The highest of which is Chachma. And on that level, Chachma, of the highest world, which is the world of Atzilus, Chachma of Atzilus, from there emerged every Jewish soul. And that soul traveled. If the soul stayed in the world of Atzilus, you're a very high tzaddik, very, very, very holy individual. Most souls don't stay in that world of Atzilus. Truth is, if your soul stayed somewhere in the world of Bria, you're probably also a tzaddik. Then there's Yitzira, then there's Asiya. In every world, there's about 900 levels. There's 4 worlds. There's 3,600 levels. A soul could travel 3,600 levels until it enters a body, which means it would travel to the lowest level of all of the options. And embedded within that soul, embedded, is all the energy of its origin. Chachma of planet Atzilus, the highest level, the highest world. And that's reflected in the Chachma of the soul of the Jew, the highest power, the highest level of my soul. And within the Chachma is the core godliness of the soul. And from that core godliness, every Jew believes in God. Every Jew loves God. Every Jew fears God. Every Jew is absolutely nullified potentially to God. We have to actualize it, but every one of us in potential feels absolute nullification to God. And every one of us potentially would self-sacrifice for God. So those 5 powers, belief in God, love of God, fear of God, nullification to God, self-sacrifice to God, those 5 powers, which are the 5 Jewish powers that have written our destiny for 3,333 years, those 5 powers are all coming from the godliness within the Chachma of the soul of the Jew, reflecting our origin and our original powers, those intense godly powers from the Chachma of God's highest world, the world of Atzilus. Any questions on any of this? Okay. We're all either still really tired, or it was very clear, or a combination of both. Great. So let's look inside. Okay. So we could look on the bottom of page 46, where we speak a little about this power of Chachma. Because what we were saying was that the reason why every Jew loves God, and every Jew fears God, and every Jew believes in God, and every Jew will self-sacrifice for God, is because embedded in our soul is this core godliness coming from the Chachma of God's highest world within this solar system of worlds, Atzilus, highest level of highest world, Chachma Atzilus, is the core level my soul emerged from, within which is the energy of God himself. So wherever I travel to, I think of it like the Russian stacking dolls. You know, whatever the outer layer is, open it up, there's a more precious one inside. Open that up, there's a more precious one inside. So this soul traveled to somewhere in the lowest world of Asiya. Open that up, within that is Yetzirah. Open that up, within that is Bria. Open that up, within that is Atzilus. Open that up, within that is Chachma Atzilus. Open that up, within that is the infinity of God himself. So all of those layers and layers and layers are within my soul. That's why we're all so super powerful. Because within every one of our souls, we go all the way back to our origin. Even if we officially left our origin, it's like there's a concept of a Landslight. Where do you come from? Where's your origin point? So we're Landslight to God himself. So wherever far we travel, maybe we made it to America, but we're not American. We're Landslight. Within is Chachma, the world of Atzilus, within which is the energy of God himself. That's the core power of my soul, of every Jew, no matter how far they traveled. And that's why we know that if you have a soul, you love God. So within all of our souls, if I go deep enough, is that origin point of the highest level of the highest world, spiritual worlds, Chachma, highest, number 10. Of course, I said there's 900 levels in each world. So the highest slice, top 90. In the highest world of the four worlds, four spiritual worlds, Chachma Atzilus, within which is the infinite light of God himself. Kidasiv, as is written, Hashem b'chachma yasad aretz. Hashem in the power of Chachma founded land. Aretz refers to this whole physical reality. Aretz refers to the lowest spiritual reality, which in the world would be called Malchus, sovereignty. So what we're saying here is, it's all coming from Chachma. Chachma is the power where God is most expressed. Because Chachma takes up the least space. It has the least parameters. Its whole expression is a nullification to God. So through Chachma flows God's creative energies, within which emerges all the spiritual levels of every world. So in any world, the faculty from which comes all aspects is the Chachma. And that's why whatever level you are in any world, it all traces back to Chachma. So from the Chachma flows that entire world. And from the Chachma flows our world. So that's why wherever our soul traveled to, within, it's Chachma. Because Chachma is the energy from which all of this emerged. The Kulam b'Chachma Sivsa. And another proof, all of them you made from Chachma. Kulam, all of them, with Chachma, with his highest quality. Asisa you made, or Asisa reflects Asiya, the lowest of the four spiritual worlds. All of them you made with Chachma Atzilus. So wherever my soul traveled to Asiya, where's Asiya's origin? Chachma Atzilus. Which is why my soul that started from Chachma Atzilus, wherever she went to, it's all an extension of Chachma Atzilus. And that's why she never really left. She thought she left. She traveled. It seems like a different place. Her powers got covered over. But she never really left, because wherever she's going, that is ultimately an extension of Chachma Atzilus. So wherever you are, there's Chachma Atzilus. It's all within every level. And that's why you never leave it. And that's why you could always access it. And that's why it's embedded in your soul. And that's why every Jew loves God and fears God and believes God and is nullified to God and will self-sacrifice for God. B'nimsa, so all of this leads us to understand that the infinity of God is in God, within the Chachma, in the soul of every person. Whatever level he is of the Jewish people, the lowest of the low, has within himself a soul that perhaps traveled 3,600 levels, but guess what? If I go deep enough within those 3,600 levels, there's Chachma V'Tzilus, within which is the infinity of God. That's in the soul of that Jew as well. So it's a great way to understand our own potential and the potential of every other Jew. Meaning some of us have a difficult time believing in our power. Some of us have a difficult time when we look at some other people. Some of us have a difficult time with both. So however it's applicable, every single Jew, every one of us, and every Jew, no matter what they seem like, has literally the power of the infinity of God himself wired into their soul. Now this power, Chachma, within which is the infinity of God himself, extends itself throughout my entire soul. It's not, well, this very, very, very deep, deep, deep part that I'll never feel or know but exists. No, it's vivifying my soul. To give it life. From the head to the foot of my soul, from the highest levels to the lowest levels of my soul, with everything is flavored by this chachma, within which is the infinity of God. So I have, as a Jew, 5 levels of soul, within which each level there are 10 powers. And within every one of those 50 aspects is the flavor of the chachma of the highest level, the chachma of the Yechidah. Because everything is rooted, just like by God, all of the 3,600 levels go back to Chachma V'Tzilus, highest level of highest world. Within my soul, all of these 50 levels, and there's really, of course, more than 50 levels, we could subdivide them far more, but saying simply, we'll say 50 levels, all of these 50 levels are emerging from the highest level of the highest part of my soul, Chachma V'Yechidah. So everything is flavored by Chachma. It's all emerging from Chachma. So in every soul power, I feel, I taste, I experience my belief in God, my love for God, my awe of God, my nullification to God, my willingness to self-sacrifice for that relationship. It's embedded in every aspect of my soul because the Chachma of my soul, within which is the infinity of God himself, which gives me those 5 powers, is really vivifying every single level of soul. As is written, Chachma gives life to the one that possesses her. So the Chachma of my soul is giving life to me as a person, and is giving life to my soul. And that's why this flavor of Chachma, these levels of beliefs and relationships with God, are not just exclusive to Chachma. It's penetrating all aspects. Now the Rebbe, if you're looking inside, the next part is in parentheses, because it's parenthetical. But we will see when we learn it why the Rebbe chose to put it here. Ulif, it might seem a little left field, but if you think about it, you understand really the connection. Ulif amim, and sometimes mamshichim poishe Yisrael, sinners, Jews that we call sinners, really, really low level Jews. Nishamos gevahos ma'od, they draw down for their children very, very high level souls. Jahayu be'imke haklipas, that were trapped, so to speak, in the depths of the forces of evil. As is written in the work of Reb Chaim Vital, teaching the Torahs of the Arizal on the whole idea of reincarnations of souls. So the Rebbe there says, like parenthetically, as we call it, random. Oh, and by the way, sometimes really low-level Jews have children with really, really, really high souls. What does that have to do with anything? It expresses a point. The point we're saying is every Jew possesses such an enormous soul. Every single one of us. The most righteous, God forbid someone who doesn't seem righteous at all. In terms of soul power, every Jew possesses the same. The enormity of God's Chachma Batzilus, within which is the infinity of God himself, or Ein Sof Baruch Hu. So therefore, a person who, in terms of his actions, how he's actualizing his soul, could seem very, very far from soul. His soul is as powerful as any of ours, and perhaps more. And that's why his child could have such a high soul. Because all souls have this unity. All souls emerged from Chachma Vatzilus. All souls possess as their core the infinity of God's light. And that's why, if you want to view it as democratic or however you want to view it, every single soul, every single Jew, equally, potentially, could have a child with the highest soul. Because it's not like the parents had a lower soul. No, they did, because they're sinners. Well, maybe they just made a lot of bad choices. Yeah, but their souls were probably low to start with for them to make such bad choices. Maybe. But even if we want to say that, and we did say there are rankings within souls, obviously, as we're saying, these sinners can produce children with very high souls. That means there are high souls, which means there are lower souls. So that's true. But even the lowest soul, and maybe that's what these parents possess, which is why they made so many bad choices, because their soul powers were soul constricted. But in origin, it's all the same. As we said, lamb's light, where they come from, it's all the same. Embedded in them, it's all the same. And that's why potentially they could give that to their child. Because in truth, that's what they have inside of themselves. They just never accessed it. So this is a sort of interesting concept the Rebbe's throwing in. That sometimes very high souls that are trapped in the forces of evil come to not such great environments. Not such as we would call it today, stable, functional families, not such good families. It's all part of the divine plan. Why? Well, we said the souls are trapped in the klipas, so to speak. The forces of evil, as if these forces of evil have a power, and their forces of evil are saying, no way, this soul, we're not letting it go on planet Earth. Oh, those parents? Yeah, that's a good idea. To those parents, we'll release this soul, because with those parents, the soul's never going to do anything right anyway, so we feel secure. So that could be why a lower parent could sometimes produce such a holy child, because the forces of evil were like, yeah, there we're safe. Nothing's going to happen. Like we see, of course, it's the same idea, because the parents weren't Jewish per se. But we see this classically with Abraham, that his parents, both his father and his mother, started off as very, very, very evil people. Now, in the end, his father repented. We don't know his mother's journey, but his father did repent. But when he was born, his parents were like from the worst of the worst. His father was Terah, who promulgated idolatry. That was his business. And his mother's name was Amisle, which means falseness, deceit. That was her name. That was her essence. So those were really low people. So if there was a soul like Abraham that had to come into this world, the forces of evil are saying, Abraham's soul? Okay. So Terah and Amisle were safe. Rachel, what was your question?
Does it mean that people who are on lower level have more chances, or it's not?
More chances to have holy children?
Yeah.
No, because there is the concept of a holier person being able to draw down a holier soul, or you can't really say, as we're going to learn, as we learned many chapters ago. I mean, there's two different truths. One truth is no human determines soul. Soul is determined by God. But there are ways very righteous people can turn to God to draw down certain souls. So very, very holy people have the ability to draw down, to request from God in a very appealing way to draw down very holy souls. So therefore, the assumption is that very holy people have very holy children. There's also the general directive that was learned at the end of chapter 2 of Tanya, that when a couple is in a situation where potentially a child could be conceived, that they should put themselves in a very holy space, obviously following all of God's laws of marital relationships, and in their head space, in their heart space, to be very connected to God, to be in a very, very holy space. And this will help. It won't determine the soul of the child, but it will help what's called the garments of the soul of the child. It will help the soul's ability to have a natural expression in godliness. So the holier those garments are, drawn down by the holier intentions the parents had during the time of conception of the child, this will determine the accessibility of the soul to express itself, the natural affinity of the soul to express itself in our world, which, bottom line, would make a holier person. So again, a holier person, very holy people can draw down, even though really God determines it, but can also get from God a holier soul. And any person, of course, the holier the person, the more likely can also draw down holy garments that make the soul's powers more accessible. So it's not that unholy parents have a greater shot at having a holy child. The innovation that's written here in this Kabbalistic work, the Book of Incarnations, is that sometimes, ulif amen, that means not the norm, but sometimes not holy people have very holy children. And that's the question. Meaning, if we see that Abraham and Sarah produced a Yitzchak, we're not questioning it. When the Alter Rebbe had a child, the Mitzler Rebbe, we're not questioning it. That makes sense. But when we see a really holy soul was in such a dark place, like a famous example in the Gemara, in the Talmud, is Reish Lakish, who was one of the greatest sages of the times of the Talmud. And he started off as a highway robber, as a horrific, famous, notorious bandit. But embedded with him was a very holy soul that was never given an opportunity to shine. And that's why God created a situation that he was able to get out of that mud. The Lubavitcher Rebbe says that when you go, we would call it amitzayim, which means you do outreach, which people that are not Orthodox, you should know that it's very possible that potentially they have a much higher soul than you, which sort of is going to get us into the next thing I was going to say about this concept, because their soul could handle being in Manhattan, so to speak, but mine couldn't, so mine wasn't challenged in that direction. But those souls could, because God knows they'll get out of it. They'll emerge. So you need a stronger soul to be put in that darkness to be able to emerge from it. So when you're interacting with someone, you shouldn't have this sense of superiority, like, oh, I'm so great, I know everything, I'm full with all the wealth, and you're like, nothing. No, it's very possible they're much holier soul. That's why they can be put in such a place. Which goes to the second concept, because if you think of this idea, and you're like, wait a minute. Suddenly the forces of evil are running the world here? This is not Christianity. Like, what are we saying? The forces of evil are trapping these souls, and they say, no, I'm not letting this holy soul out. Oh, Terach and a Misle, okay, we'll send Abram's soul there. Yeah, that's safe. Obviously, God runs the show. And obviously, this superficial, so to speak, the powers of evil is part of God's plot. So why does God want such holy souls to go to such non-holy environments? For the reason I just said. Because God needs them to go there. Because all throughout this world is embedded enormous sparks of godly energy. From the Kabbalistic doctrine explained as the shattering of the powers of the world of chaos, the world of Tohu, where the shards of the vessels of those worlds fell into our world. Enormous, intense God energies. And the bigger the spark, the lower it fell. Which means the bigger the spark, the lower is the environment possessing it. But we got to extract those sparks. So when you go to a really dark environment and you emerge from that dark environment, and you serve God from that dark environment, and you return to God from that dark environment, you're releasing all the energy of that environment. That's your power. So who could God entrust such a mission to? Only a very powerful soul. Because those are the only souls that could do it. Because a regular soul wouldn't be able to go there. It'd be too overwhelmingly dark. Wouldn't be possible. How would they get out? But a really intense soul could get out. We see in our world today so many Jews born to such darkness, and they get out. And when they get out, they're taking that darkness with them. The power of it. You think of Jews are born, I mean, Rahman al-Islam, it's so sad because of so much intermarriage and so much ignorance. So like a Jew born, like we know there are Jews born to intense Christianity experiences and get out. So imagine all the shards stuck in this evil that are released as this soul gets out from that darkness and takes all the forces with her. So for the forces of evil, it works to let a holy soul go to a low place. It's the only place the force of evil would want. Obviously, God's running the show, and for God it works. Because he needs those souls to go there, because only those souls are powerful enough to go there and get the sparks out. And for the soul, it also works. Because every soul's in this world to grow, to access a growth only possible in this world. Above, the souls have it far better. It's a more fun experience. God is revealed. The only thing that there is God. And, just bliss and ecstasy and no growth. How could you have growth with all that bliss and ecstasy? When they come to this world, a lot of darkness, a lot of barriers, a lot of room to grow. But the more powerful a soul, you need more challenges to create that growth. Because, for me, that's not a big deal. All right, so we have to give you a little more. So for the soul whose purpose is to grow and to access these spiritual levels, as we call it, Ra'usa Deliba, irrational love for God, you can only access irrational love here. Above it all makes sense. No irrational love. There it's all rational. So if you're looking for an irrational love of God, come to planet Earth and come to the darker spots. And it's more and more irrational. And the holier the soul, the deeper that journey has to be, the darker those places have to be the catalyst for such growth, for such a journey, for the soul achieving her real potential. So for the forces of evil, it works. For God, it works. And of course, because God is ultimately just, for the soul, it works. And that's why we sometimes see, and of course nowadays, we definitely see this, because no time, as much as our time, do we see this power of repentance, this movement of people coming from there's a Jew there, and pulling out all of that energy. We all know so many stories of so many people's return. And that's all, in essence, from this point of pulling out those sparks, of bringing the world to Mashiach, and of each soul fulfilling her reason for being in this world. And connected to our chapter, the fact that it could be is because even though the parent might seem so far from God, it's a Jew, same ability to have that ultra powerful soul as any other Jew in the world. Any questions on this? Any other questions? Ruffle asked a question. Any other? Thank you, Ruffle. It's nice to hear another voice besides my own. Any other questions? Okay, very powerful ideas. A lot to think about, a lot to process. All right, well, we're going to stop here. I forgot to bring up my Basura Sagula. I actually forgot to bring up my Tanya also, but it was fine on this floor. But we're coming from the energy of Passover. I actually totally related to yesterday's Hayom Yom. Hayom Yom is the thought of the day. The Lavater Rebbe selected for every day of the year a thought that expresses the essence energy of the day. It's really cool. Like if you look up your Jewish birthday or someone you know is passing or anniversary, you can really see like, oh my gosh, that's them written all over that day. Very, very amazing. So yesterday's thought was, it's really hard after Passover. It's really hard to get back into life. And that's why the final day of Passover is the day of Mashiach's energy shining. So we ingested some of that Mashiach power, and with that power, we can go forth. So it's a little hard, or a lot hard, after Passover. Especially, of course, it was a very good Passover, as I hope everyone had. And I really felt it yesterday, like, oh, wow, that post-Passover down. And then like, no, we have tremendous power because we have a new infusion of Mashiach energy. That's what we were gifted with on the final day of Pesach, of Passover. And that gives us powers to do what we could not do before. Anyone have anything they'd like to share, something they'd like to thank Hashem for, or some small or big miracle they experienced? I'm sure lots of things happened. Passover was a very intense time. Very labor intense and very in general intense time. Lots and lots and lots of good things happening. I'll share one thing. It's not really I don't know if it falls in either category. It's more sort of like, I think more the takeaway is like, you do sometimes a little nice thing, which creates a ripple effect of another good thing, another good thing, another good thing. So it's good to step up to the plate and do the first thing. So I was by my son in Springfield for the holiday. Don't worry, I worked hard, but I didn't have to clean my house. But then, as I said, when I came home, I had to clean it. It was a disaster from a number of other things. But so I was in Springfield a few days early to cook. And I was one of the days I was reading, glance, I don't know how to manage to look at it, this little publication my son comes out with, like I don't know, calls it annual review or something, sort of like highlighting the highlights of the previous year in his Chabad house. And he also has their little blurbs from people in the community. Every year, a few different people write little nice things from a whole spectrum, like young people, older people. So I read it. That was really the only part I really read of it, of course. And one woman in his community, an older woman, she's in her 90s actually, I was really, really touched by what she wrote. It just moved me very much. I'm not going to bother telling you, that's not really relevant for the story. But I was like, wow, I'd like to tell her how touched I was. And I was like, I don't really know. I mean, of course I know her because my son's already been there for almost 5 years. So obviously I know his community, but not in like an intimate, personal way that I ever called her on the phone. But I'd like to tell her what she wrote was really meaningful. It's nice to know that what you wrote was meaningful. But I asked my son, do you think it's a good idea? He's like, sure. So I called, I got a machine, and I left a nice message. That's it, my, so to speak, good deed. Anyway, she called me back like 5 minutes later. She said, oh, any unknown call. She assumes it's like, I guess, a telemarketer. So she doesn't pick up, but then she heard my message, so she called me back. And we had a nice, lovely, warm conversation, which of course is a good thing, nice thing on many levels. At the end of the conversation, she said to me, oh, I'd love you to come and visit me over Passover. So I'm like, of course. Obviously, I had no time over Passover. Now it's coming towards, now we're already at the end of the holiday. And I said to my son, Mendy, I'm like, Mendy, I told him initially about this woman's invitation. He's like, well, of course we'll go, but it never happened. I'm like, Mendy, let's go now, the last days. He's like, well, she lives a bit far. Like, it's not a far drive, but it'd be a far walk. But there's this concept on the night of the 7th of Passover to walk to other places. And my son usually walks to other, he can't go to another synagogue. That's not possible in Springfield. And he always walks to people's homes. But because of Corona, he hadn't done it, for a year. So he wasn't planning on doing it because of Corona. So he's going to walk someone's house. Someone's going to him in his house. I'm like, well, this lady invited us. So he's like, okay, let's walk. Okay. He said, it's far. I'm like, I'll do it. I can walk. So he called her and she was like, yeah, I think she had said to me something like, oh, you'll sit on the porch. We'll sit on the porch. Fine. Yeah, he told her we're coming. Yeah, wonderful. So it was it was a good 3-mile walk. And I went, and my husband went, and my son Mendy went, and another son went, and we walked. And it felt great, you know, to do this. My husband, of course, does it every holiday, but I never did this in my life. And then we came to her house. And I mean, I was like, you know, she's an older person, Corona. I said to my son, should we wear masks? He's like, no, don't worry about it. She opened it. She you know, she gave me a hug. You know, we all sat down by her kitchen table. And we had like a lovely, lovely, lovely hour where, you know, I was able to share a lot of Jewish ideas with this woman. So that felt so special. So from the phone call, from the return phone call, from the walking to her house, suddenly we spent an hour on the, you know, height of Passover, the 7th of Pesach. Actually, I'm sorry, not the night of the 7th. It's the eve of the 8th. So going into the holiest day, and we told her all about, you know, the last day of Pesach and Mashiach. It was amazing. And then because she's Reformed, and Reformed, they end the holiday after the 7th. She didn't know there was an 8th day of the holiday. That's playing the whole idea of the 8th day and Mashiach. And I mentioned, of course, Yizkor. She's like, oh, she didn't know. And then that was as far as I was going to go. My son said, well, you could come to our synagogue for Yizkor tomorrow. Oh, yeah, of course, I'd love to come for my. Said for your parents. Unfortunately, has 2 children that passed away already. I did not think she was going to show up because, like, whatever, you know. The next day she came. She's 92. Her husband's 96. And the two of them came to our completely maskless. I mean, synagogue is just basically our family. There was nobody there. But they came. It was amazing. And so then we had the extra good thing. Then they had the Yizkor prayer. And then after that, we gave them matzah to have to end the holiday with the matzah of the Mashiach meal. So it was, and there's a lot, believe it or not, there's more details I'm not saying. But I just really felt from there how, like, you know, one good deed leads to another good deed, leads to another good deed, leads to another good deed, leads to another good deed. It's just like we sort of have to initiate the process, like extend our hand, and then God keeps pushing it further and further and further and further. So that was a beautiful, I was beautiful for me experience over Pesach. Does someone have something else they'd like to share, something they'd like to thank Hashem for?
Hello. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Can I share something?
Absolutely, Dottie. Let's hear it.
So I call this the Pesach miracle. So I had a falling out with my sister, unfortunately, and it was my fault. I did something I shouldn't have done, and she was very upset with me. And I hadn't talked to her for several months. Then right before Pesach, the phone rings and it's her. And she says, I says, oh my gosh, I'm so happy to hear from you. She says, Daddy came to me in a dream. He's very angry with me that we're not getting along. So I'm calling, we have to get along now.
Wow. That's unbelievable.
So my father came to her and said, enough of this. I don't like you guys fighting, you know. So, so I brought her, she's not observant especially, but, you know, she's got a very Jewish soul, but she doesn't, you know. So I brought her, I said, I'm so glad that you're talking to me. Can I bring you some food? I made some food for Pesach. She said, yeah. So I brought her all this delicious food, and she was so touched, and she wants the recipes, and it's like it opened the door. But usually we read about that people come in somebody's dream and they talk to them, but this actually happened where a repair was made with my sibling, thanks to my father, and it was the Pesach miracle. It was just, it was so great as this was lifted from my shoulders, this unfortunate thing. And so I have to thank my father and thank Hashem that he was able to come to my sister and talk, you know, and send her a message.
Wow, that's very special. And maybe it's also your father's strength, his merits, and your merits that probably facilitated that. Wow, that's beautiful. It's beautiful. And it's a lesson for all of us how important relationships are. And sometimes we have to take that first uncomfortable step, even though the other person is not going to be interested and going to reject it because they're that important. So that's really beautiful. I'm so glad that your father and Hashem gave you that Pesach miracle and Pesach gift.
Amen.
beautiful
Amen. It
gift.
was just wonderful. Thank you. Thank you
That's
for letting me share.
Beautiful
Special.
gift. Sibling relationships, that's a beautiful gift, an important gift. Thank you, Dottie, for sharing that with us. So
Thank you
beautiful.
for letting me share.
Anyone else? Someone else have something to share? I know everyone experienced miracles because I'm a Pesach has a time of miracles, and there's so many things that could go wrong and sometimes do and then get corrected. So anyone else have something they'd like to share? Okay, I guess not this time, but I'm sure everyone had miracles. Maybe you're forgetting them. Too bogged down with the cleanup. I'm sure everyone experienced miracles. Rethink, and they'll be like, all right. No, we experience miracles every day. Every day things happen in our life. Every day, you might not call it a miracle, but every day there's so much to thank God for. From every single day, I always find like so much of like, thank you, God. Like a lot of times it's like, oh, it worked out. Yeah, but how did it just work out? And what would life be like if it hadn't worked out? I like yesterday. So my son, Doe Bear, he's in this therapy program in the afternoon. And I left Springfield, wanted to be on the road at 8:30, got up quite early to do that after, obviously cleaning up the whole Pesach and putting it away the night before. And one of the goals was to take him to his afternoon program and, drop him off at the program. And then I come home and then I see a call. I'm like, oh no, what were they calling about? Calls did not mean good. It probably means there's a problem. And I picked up and she's like, oh, you forgot to fill out the email. I'm like, I didn't know. I said, I didn't have a moment to look at my emails. I was racing to get from Springfield, Illinois to get him to you. No problem. Okay, I figured it's some, with COVID, everyone. So I open up the email and the first line says something about like, was he completely isolated during his quarantine? I'm like, what are they talking about? I mean, I'm an honest person. What quarantine? So I call her back. I'm like, Evie, that's the secretary's name. I'm like, I don't even know what this question means. What quarantine? She's like, well, the quarantine. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. So what it turns out is that he was exposed to someone with COVID and he was supposed to be quarantined like the entire Pesach. And I'm like, but I got an email, Friday before Pesach, I don't even know how I saw this email, saying, oh, we want to tell you, don't worry because your child had no direct contact, so you don't need to do anything. And I even opened it up and read her that email. She's like, oh, but there was another email after that. But you probably didn't see it because it came Friday night saying, oops, we made a mistake. He was in direct contact and he does need to be quarantined. And I was like, oh, well, and then I counted the days. I'm like, well, and she's like you weren't quarantined. I'm like, well, it's been 14 days since he was in your school. So it's irrelevant at this point. So she had to speak to the director and they agreed it was irrelevant and he was allowed to stay. And I was like, wow, think of all those thank yous. Thank you that he was in direct contact and didn't have COVID. Thank you that I never saw the second email. So I had no need to isolate him and quarantine him for the whole Pesach. Thank you. How did I not see that email? I read my emails and I was like, obviously it was after 3-day Yontif, but I still have read the email, probably because of the first email that they messed up on. I saw the second email and thought it was the first email, so I never even opened it. So I had no fear of him getting COVID. I had no stress over him being quarantined. And then they took him into school anyway. And I was like, thank you, Hashem. There's so many things you did there to make it work. I was clueless. I never saw the other email. But you just made it all work. And it was exactly 14 days, so they couldn't have any complaints on me. So, you look and you're like, wow, look at all those. Okay, you can say it's a little thing. Okay, he could have been quarantined. What were we doing anyway over Pesach? It could have been quarantined. It would have been okay. But thank you, Hashem, that you just made it all work. And there's a lot of that in our life. Sometimes the more you see it, how in so many different ways Hashem is just there for us, making everything work in the big details and in the little details. Anyway, we should all have a wonderful post-Pesach recuperation. And Yasher Koyach for everyone coming on. Sarah, you should have an incredibly safe and easy drive. I had a very easy drive back, but my drive is a lot shorter than yours. So you should have a safe and easy drive. And we should all have a easy returning our homes to normalcy, returning our schedules to normalcy, returning our children to normalcy, and returning our own lives to normalcy. Getting all the advantages that we absorb spiritually from the Pesach holiday, and feeling and knowing that we're different because of it, that our families are different because of it, and that the world is different because there was another Pesach. Have a wonderful, meaningful week, and it should be a good one.
Thank you.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining. It's a hard night to join.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.